Imagine having the gift of a diary from 150 years ago from one of your relatives. Can you imagine the changes and the things that you would learn? Well, I have one guest that can imagine that because that's exactly what she got, a real gift. She wrote a book called Kenneth Mckenzie Diary, 1869 to 1870. Joyce McLean, thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you. I'm very glad to be here.
What an amazing gift. I mean, a 150-year-old diary. You've got to share with us, how did this happen? And what prompted you to write the book and put it all down for everybody else to see?
Well, I had known about the diary all my life, that it was in the family, but I had never seen it until I was an adult.
Mhm.
Um, and when I did, I thought it was a shame. Very few people in the family even knew that it existed. And
Hmm.
I thought it would be
Yeah.
a wonderful idea to put it in a format that people could easily read. The diary itself was old, uh, quite fragile, written in pencil, written in phrases rather than complete sentences. It was
Mhm.
often hard to tell where one thought ended and another began because the writing style was different than we're accustomed to.
Hmm.
The capital letters were such flourished in style that it was hard to tell what one letter was from another. So
Wow.
it really needed to be put in a format that people could actually read it.
And let's talk about who Kenneth Mckenzie is.
Yes, he was born in Scotland in 1822, and he emigrated to Canada in around 1841 and started farming in Ontario. In the late 1860s, he decided that was just when the West was opening up in Canada, and he decided to go and look and see whether there was some better farmland that he could go to. So the
Hmm.
diary covers four of those trips that he made back and forth between Ontario and Manitoba in deciding where he was going to farm and whether he was going to do it. And so his journeys and his setting up the farm is all there in his word for word diary.
And we have to remember, we're talking about
Yes,
1869 to 1870, because instantly my mind goes to 19. Well, that's still that's still old, but Canada had just become a country in 1867. This is what we're talking about. I mean,
yes,
wow,
that's
it's
true.
hard to understand.
Yes, it is amazing to think that we could go back in history and see exactly what somebody was thinking at that time and what they were experiencing and living.
What were some of the biggest surprises that you found out when it's basically kind of like opening a time machine in a way. What were some of the surprises that you encountered?
Well, one of the surprises in reading the diary was that Kenneth Mckenzie had had several encounters with Louis Riel, which is a famous historical figure in our history. And so he had met him several times, and he recounts that in the diary. And I had no idea of that.
What's the
And
relationship? What's the relationship between you and Kenneth?
he is my great great grandfather.
Wow. Wow. So let's go on and keep talking about some of the surprises. So who he's met, what were some of the things that they had to encounter? What, as far as trials and things that we just can't even imagine?
Well, I guess one of the other surprises was that my ancestor had participated in a conference that they had just before in order to establish the conditions that Manitoba eventually became a province in Canada. So again, that's not something that I had any inkling of as I was growing up, that he actually participated in the province uh, being created. Like it became in 1870, shortly after his diary.
Hmm. Did
So
he
that was
speak about
the surprise.
Yeah, did he speak about any of the dangers in traveling?
Um, Well, yes. I mean, it was, I guess the dangers, it was not easy to travel in those days. And I still don't understand how they found their way because there would
Yeah.
be little developed. They, his first trip was through the Great Lakes on a ship, and he took four horses and two wagons and themselves on on a ship through the Great Lakes to the head of Lake Superior, down into Minnesota, and then back up to Manitoba. And so a lot of that was open camping, like they would have slept in the open during the night. One morning they woke up to find out that their horses had run away. So they're in the middle of the prairies having to find their horses. And they eventually found them 4 miles away. But I still can't imagine, like, how would they know in which direction to go to find the horses? Like, it mustn't
Right.
be an easy task to recover them.
It's just a whole different mindset. It's just a totally different way of thinking and living. Um, what did you learn about yourself in this?
Uh,
Do you see any
I
resemblance as you like, "Oh, I see a little thread of that characteristic in him and me," or something like that?
Well, I'm not sure that I have an answer to that. I mean, one thing that I did note in reading the diary that I think people in general in those days were much more religious than perhaps we are in society. Like he often mentioned that a minister preached to them in somebody's living room, on a Sunday, and it was always such a treat when they got somebody to preach to them. And
Hmm,
so the religion seemed to be a big part of their life.
hmm.
Um, I
Wow.
guess one thing he certainly made, and I don't think I am like this, he certainly made it known when he didn't like someone. He
Really?
he would normally talk about people being so kind, like he mentioned various characters he'd encountered. Oh, they were so kind. She was a handsome looking woman. Uh, and then you would run across a few people that he felt that had crossed them, and you knew he didn't like them. They were a scoundrel. They were a tick. He was so mean.
No
And
kidding.
so I think for myself, I would keep those thoughts to myself.
Sure. Well, if I was out wandering in the wilderness in the cold trying to figure out how to eat and where to sleep and, I might have a little grouchy day, but it is interesting to hear the words that they're using, scoundrel and tick and,
Yes.
so, well, we're kind of starting to wrap up the interview a little bit. What are some final thoughts that you have? Why would someone enjoy reading the book?
Well, I personally found it fascinating to find out how much he paid for certain things. Like he bought certain things along the route, or when he was farming. And so it was interesting to see what the prices were. He paid $60 for an ox,
That seems like a
$35.
lot.
It seems like a lot. He paid $35 for a small cow. It was small, but they were hard to come by, so he thought he had to pay that much. He paid $2 to get his watch repaired. He thought that was very expensive.
Oh.
And yet, the first night when they were traveling, they were able to stop at an inn, and that was $2.50. That would have been for four adults. It would have been their meals, and it would have been stabling their four
Well,
horses. So
Joyce,
that was a bargain.
when you think about that compared to $2 for a watch repair, I mean, you're talking about almost a full night's cost to repair a watch, so I can see why he would think that's expensive. So much
Yes.
more to talk about. Joyce, I know that you are represented by Writers Republic, but where is your book available?
Well, certainly from Writers Republic. It's Barnes and Noble, Amazon. In Canada, it's available on Kobo and Chapters Indigo. Um, and I should mention that the book is being translated into French, so it will be available to French readers soon.
That is really fun. Joyce, thank you for joining us today.
It was a pleasure. Thank you, Suzanne.